On this episode, we chat with Phra Pandit to talk about why monks can't become politicians.
So if you're curious about what the Buddha said about politics and how it works in the modern world, you'll dig this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 because I really love long flights, but never went home because it turns out I love mango and sticky rice even more.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, good stuff.
And I met Knut, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 24 years ago, fell in love with seeing foreigners behaving badly and thinking, at least that's not me. So I never left.
Pretty low bar to clear, but it does feel nice.
It makes me feel good about myself when I see, drunk British hooligans, getting in fights in front of 7-Elevens at 3 a.m. in Pattaya.
Right, exactly. Or even just someone walking down the street with a shirt off down Sukhumvit. Like, come on, hippie, put your shirt on.
Yeah, it makes me feel good about myself. It's where my self-esteem comes from.
It's the small wins that add up.
We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about Bangkok's IMAX cinemas and the tricky language they use to classify themselves as IMAX, the limitations of AI platforms that seem pretty cool on first inspection, but are actually quite underwhelming when trying to decode Bangkok, at least live, yet another strange trend as Thais try to defy aging, and a discussion on a new law that will, apparently, allow Bangkok's government to act better, faster, and more transparently when improving the city. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
Booyah. And as a quick shout out, we want to give two shout outs actually to, first of all, our friend Peter. I met up with him last week at Icon Siam for some food, and he helped me out with an issue I was trying to solve. And second to Vasily, who heard Ed and I say on a recent show that we've never had Russian food, and he graciously took us out for some delicious borscht, palmini, and blinis, and great coffee as well. Once again, proving that we have the most awesome group of listeners around.
No doubt about that. Thank you, Vasily.
Yeah, and Peter too. Good times. All right. On this episode, we welcome back our old buddy, our old pal, the venerable Phra Pandit. We had a lovely lunch last week, and afterward we're able to sit down for a chat. Years ago, back in season 1, I remember Tony and I asked Phra Pandit if monks could wear jeans if they were dyed orange. Spoiler alert, probably not, and we always enjoy posing these hypotheticals to Phra Pandit. But this time, seeing as how politically things in many places around the world are getting a bit dicey, I wanted to ask him, can a monk become a politician? Are there any rules against a Buddhist leader becoming a political leader if he's still wearing the robes? Another spoiler alert, also the answer is probably not, but there's a lot of nuance in here. The Buddha himself said a lot about politics and monks' involvement in politics, and we continue talking about where and why these lines are drawn, and if we will ever see Thailand being managed by a prime minister. So here is my conversation with our friend Phra Pandit. Well, we are sitting here back with our friend Phra Pandit, the most returningest guest on the Bangkok Podcast. I know you don't like me to say that, but it's true. And I was just looking back on the website the other day, and you were on like episode 10, I think, of season 1. So that's a long time you've been gracing us with your insight and presence. So welcome back to the Bangkok Podcast.
It's a pleasure to have me here.
Well, one of the reasons that I thought it'd be good to have you back on today was because I think everyone is watching the news online around the world. And it seems to me over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, politics has gotten really nasty, and I think is backsliding in a lot of ways in a lot of areas. But thankfully, maybe ironically, Thailand seems to be in a bit of a lull right now. Maybe the eye of the storm, or maybe things have finally sorted themselves out. I don't know. But things here seem pretty stable, which is good. But elsewhere in the world, things are not stable. And previously, when you've been on the show, we've talked about basically the episode can be boiled down to, can monks do X? Ride bicycles, wear jeans, dance, things like that. Frivolous little questions, but they hinted something deeper.
Weird how that's endlessly fascinating to people.
It is.
Can you?
Us laymen put monks and monkhood on such a pedestal that it's funny when you find out that
We can't pee standing up.
Well, I was thinking maybe what some of these Western countries need is a good injection of Buddhist calmness into the proceedings. And I was wondering if monks could get into politics. Now, we've seen the crossover between businessmen get into politics. I mean, Donald Trump is president. We've seen military men get into politics. The names are endless. We've seen, I guess, religious leaders get into politics too in Western countries, but I don't know if that is a thing in Eastern countries, in Thailand, in Buddhism. So let's start there. Can monks become politicians while they are monks?
No.
All right. Thank you for coming. Great to talk to you.
So the monks live by what's called a Vinaya, which is the monks' rules. Mm-hmm. If you're around in Thailand, you may come across this word Vinay, and it gets applied to other things than monks. So Vinay, Jaraton, traffic rules and regulations.
Oh, okay.
So Vinay means, or comes from the word Vinaya, and this is the code of conduct that the Buddha laid down for his Sangha, for his followers. He laid these rules down one by one as something happened. So the original set of rules were only, I think, 8. And then one by one, more and more things got added, as somebody did something wrong, and then the Buddha said, okay, from now on, there's this new rule that you all have to follow. So the rules got added organically. Some of them we don't know what they mean. Some of them had a meaning that's no longer applicable. Some of them had a meaning but we no longer follow for practical reasons. For example, we have a rule: monks should not travel in any vehicle unless you are sick.
Oh.
So you talk about bicycles, technically planes, cars, buses, trains, anything we can't travel in. Obviously, we don't really follow that rule. So some of the rules the Buddha laid down were regarding monks getting involved in political affairs, or, as it would appear in the suttas, local governance.
Okay.
Because there wasn't really governments as we know it, and bureaucracies. And very explicitly, the Buddha said that monks are not permitted to get involved in any local governance or any judging or any courts, anything like that. He specifically said that you're banned from doing so, even to the point that you're not supposed to express an opinion.
Really?
On things, yeah.
But,
so in Thailand, this is very much followed because people expect monks to be above politics. We're supposed to represent the summum bonum, the pinnacle of human experience in enlightenment, and so not get involved in local affairs.
Interesting. But if you're not supposed to have opinions, I mean, where is the line between having an opinion and saying this is good and bad? That's an opinion, but it's an opinion driven by the official rules of the monkhood.
Well, I guess you can have an opinion. I mean, nobody can open your skull up and check whether you have opinions or not. Or what they would do these days is go through your social media posts and find 11 years ago you wrote this comment, so that means that you're a fascist. No, so of course you have opinions, but you're not supposed to express them or get involved in society. You're not supposed to get caught between political parties.
Interesting.
One example of this was at the time of the Buddha, his hometown was on one side of the river, and the town on the opposite side had its own governance, but they were all intermarry and they're very closely connected. But there came a time when the river dried up, so they started to fight over the water rights.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And then the two armies, they've both formed a militia or an army, and they came to clash and fight. And the Buddha went and sat in between the two armies. So when they came to fight, he was sat there meditating in between them. And both sides respected him, so they actually parted without fighting and settled their disputes in other ways. Another time, the larger kingdom of the area came to attack his home city. And again, he sat between the armies. But the tree that he sat under was on his home side rather than the attacking army side. And I think he said, if I get the quote right, he said the shade of one's relatives is cooler. Now, what that means, I don't know, but it was a cool line. So the armies actually parted 3 times. And then on the 4th day when they came to fight, he didn't sit between them and he left them to fight. And his home city actually got annihilated.
Oh.
So he would be a confidant of many of the kings and queens and royal families and wealthy people, but he very deliberately, specifically wouldn't get involved himself.
Interesting. It's funny how those old rules have, like you said, have been, some of them are just not followed anymore, or some of them are ignored, just for simplicity's sake, and the way technology and society has evolved, like traveling. Now it's pretty essential for monks to travel. But why hasn't that rule been changed or evolved along with the other ones? Because politics has also evolved a great deal over the past 2,000 years.
So in Thailand some years ago, and maybe still bubbling under the surface, you had what we could vaguely call red versus yellow political sides. It's changed a lot with the big shots in Thailand who can switch sides quite suddenly, and 1 minute they're hating each other, the next minute they're like, nothing to see here.
It's like watching an old WWF between Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant or something.
So at that time, the Sangha was probably leaning towards the red side. And this is because you have more monks in the north and the northeast than you do in central and southern Thailand.
Oh, okay.
So most of the monkhood will be built up out of people from the north and the northeast. And obviously they bring their political preferences with them. So I'd have said if the country was 60-40 at the time, the monkhood was probably 70-30. But within the monasteries, generally speaking, the monks wouldn't bring politics up too much because they don't want to alienate each other. And I think the bond or the commonality of being monks together in a monastery is stronger than their political affiliations.
Okay.
So at the time of the Thailand's political battles, for the most part, the monks stayed out of it. In private, if you talk to them, they may have a preference, but they wouldn't be using the temple resources, for example, and they wouldn't take official political positions for the most part. Obviously, you can go onto Twitter or something and you can find some monks saying something, but generally speaking, it's pretty much accepted that the monks would stay out of politics. Now, there's so few exceptions. I did go down to Hua Hin a few years ago during some recent struggles in the last decade. And I went to a monastery there just to show my face, and because they will ask questions why a Farang monk is wandering around. So usually you go and pay your respects to the local head monk.
Okay.
So while I was there waiting to speak to him, one of the monks started to get me on this, and he started hammering his politics at me, and he was really quite not enthusiastic. He's quite wound up by it. But again, I think this is in private, so you wouldn't do that as part of the monastery.
I was going to ask about that. I'm sure that behind closed doors, when the lights go down and monks all come back to their temples in the evenings, there's probably vociferous disagreements or arguments or opinions about whatever, politics, for instance.
I think people in Thailand who disagree, they just tend not to talk to each other too much about it. Again, in the monastery, it's much clearer that you're not supposed to get involved. And it's clear that you don't want to alienate the other monks. So Yeah, I don't think there was a lot of arguments about it. There may be opinions expressed here and there, but I don't think people were arguing about it. Now, this is different in Sri Lanka. The Thai Buddhist system comes from Sri Lanka. Mm-hmm. But in Sri Lanka, it's the opposite. The monks get extremely political.
Really?
They form political parties. They go out waving banners, holding protests, marching down the road.
Well, what the hell? Why is it so different for them in here if they come from the same
And
root?
they have different factions. So there are very clearly delineated different schools and factions in Sri Lanka who get along well, but when it comes to politics, they'll be on opposite sides.
So why is it okay there but not here? See, this is my big problem with all religions that I argue about with our common friend George, who's a religious
It's nothing
scholar.
to do with religion. It's about the society, isn't
But
it?
it's about the rules. It's about this is the club you belong to. Here's the rules, and then you've got different rule books for different areas or
I think
different sects.
Westerners are much too focused on rules. You may have noticed in Thailand, rules are suggestions. They're not rules.
Yeah. Okay, but so why is it okay there but not here?
Even elections here in this country, they're just suggestions.
Suggestions, yeah. Like traffic lights or pants,
I think
to
the
quote Homer
Move
Simpson.
Forward Party won the last election, but they didn't form the government. I mean,
Well-
everything's negotiable, and I like that, personally. As for Sri Lanka, it's just the custom. That's just the way that the society has gone customarily. I think in Thailand, a large part of the Sangha, the official head of the Sangha is the king. And the king was above politics and stayed out. So I think in large part, the monkhood would follow that example or that precedent.
Okay.
And that's going back over a number of kings, probably going back 200 years. Because of that, I think that good example has helped to keep the monks out of politics. And they should be out of politics. It's not a religious matter about who you vote for. It's a secular matter.
That's one thing that I do like about Buddhism and the way that monks operate is that it's the whole concept of when you you're whying the robe, not the person. Or when you give a speech, you're supposed to be holding that fan in front of your face. What's it called? The
Talabat.
The talabat, because you're not supposed to know which monk the message is coming from, because it doesn't matter who it's coming from.
But you're supposed to follow the words and not the teacher.
Exactly, yeah. So have there been any famous politicians in Thailand that used to be monks? I mean, I guess most Thai men.
Yeah, they've all been monks. So that was his name, Suthep, who ran the whistleblower protests in the in the last round of political strife. After it all calmed down and they were all sent home by the military, he went and ordained as a monk for a couple of years, I think, as a way to kind of atone for having generated and caused all this strife.
My bad.
Now
Sorry.
he's going to clean up his bad karma, which is not a bad thing. Yes, it's superficial, but he did spend a couple of years in robes, and it's not a bad thing to say, you know what, maybe we should have higher aspirations. So I think now politics, Buddhism did get involved or enmeshed in Thai politics, insofar as all the big shots in Thailand, political army, police, etc., usually have their favored temples.
Right.
So each temple has a kind of matron or a patron, and then the temples can get a little bit drawn into strife that way. So what happened, Wat Dhammakaya at the time was the largest temple in Thailand, and the former Prime Minister Thaksin, he went and made some offerings there, and they would receive anybody. They are genuinely not interested in politics. Were they to get involved in politics, they would lose half their followers. They genuinely do not want to have any political strife in their monastery in any way.
For just quick for us on aside, for those that don't know, the Dhammakaya's temple is the gigantic one north of Don Mueang Airport that looks like a flying saucer from the air. It's this massive, very, very wealthy sect. Is that
nothing to do with flying saucers? But go on.
well? It looks like a flying saucer when you're in an airplane in a flying tube. But is it a sect of Theravada?
No, it's just part of Thai Buddhism.
Okay.
It's not
Anyway,
a sect. It is a school.
It's a very famous,
like.
very wealthy, very large temple. Yeah.
So this politician went and had his photo taken there. Of course, he's trying to boost his own profile by associating with the monks. But then that meant when his opposing political teams came into power, they attacked the temple as a proxy on attacking him. So the temple got drawn heavily into politics, which is a great shame because genuinely the temple had nothing to do with politics and wanted nothing to do with it. And they were just drawn in by this political hatred, which we see in America so much right now. I saw this Tesla driver who's a Democrat voter, and he says every day he gets hissed at, spat at, he gets the finger shown to him just for driving a Tesla. This kind of political hatred and violence that gets whipped up by the media is what I find really troubling. And we've seen it in Thailand. And I, for one, personally am very glad at the moment that that whole political scene has been damped down, brought under control.
Yeah, I think everyone is. I think it's funny that in Asia you sort of like, I just got back from China, so you accept a level of authoritarianism if it means that things are going to be calm and you can just go about your life and get on with things, But it's funny that we look back at some of the terrible violent protests and things that have gone on in Thailand, the red shirts and the yellow shirts and what have you. But almost all of the people who were doing terrible things, who were men, and probably some women too, used to be monks. So does someone in the Sangha look at that and go like, oh, what a shame, they've forgotten everything?
You can't hold the entire country to a set of religious ideals.
No. But
by saying we used to be a monk, therefore we expect this behavior of you. There were some funny instances about this, though, that some monks were involved. I think it was on the red shirt side. This was about 15, 20 years ago. And they were put at the front of the protest so the police wouldn't attack.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
And then the police put a whole bunch of police women at the front of their lines.
God, it's a pacifist off.
Yeah.
Do you remember that very famous photo of the protest in Burma and a monk was like drop kicking some soldier or something? Like he had one foot up and he was flip-flop on and he was giving the boots to some of the soldiers.
I didn't see that, but I taught a lot of Burmese monks in the university here, and they're all lovely people, but they are also rather political.
Really?
They are willing to get out there and fight, and unfortunately they tend to be whipped up by fake social media stuff.
That's unusual.
So I've seen them show me pictures of a house burnt down, and then with a caption on it saying these people burnt this house because of this reason, and it just wasn't true. But you can put these pictures out and whip people up so easily into this political hatred. So yeah, the Burmese monks can be pretty political. So far as I know, they don't get involved too much in secular parties, but they will get involved in between Buddhist and Muslim areas. They get involved in that, and they have been involved in the anti-military occupation from time to time.
Right.
It takes quite a lot to really stir them up, I think, but it does happen from time to time. Now, we had one in Thailand. We had a monk protester, remember? He blocked Cheng Watanat, Government House, during the last round of political strife here.
I don't remember that.
And he had this huge demonstration and blocked the roads. The entirety of the Government House was blocked. So when we were doing our visas, we had to all go elsewhere. After the military had took over, I don't know if people know, he was quietly disrobed and packed off. So he's no longer an issue. He's still involved politically a little bit, but since he isn't an abbot anymore.
Interesting. But getting back to my further point, which you made fun of me about, the saying that you see someone doing something bad, especially with political violence, and you say like, you used to be a monk, aren't you forgetting the lessons that you taught, that you learned? I'm just basing that on what the sort of Western things, like you're a good Catholic boy, Jimmy. What are you doing stealing from your mother would be proud or something like that. Or you see politicians now saying like, oh, I would never do that. I'm a Christian, which I think is all kind of horse crap anyway. But is there any of that bleed through in this? Like, do politicians here or say ever use their Buddhist lessons to publicly say, oh, I'm a good politician. I'm a former monk, so I can behave ethically and...
I have never really listened to the politicians talk very much, so I wouldn't know. But
it's probably for the best.
I remember when there was the red shirt blockade in the center of Bangkok, and then Abhisit, who was the prime minister at the time, he set up a huge row of showers on the road, so the protesters would be able to shower and get clean, and provided food. So things like that, which you've seen on both sides. Things like that would suggest that they're trying to appeal to higher ideals.
Yeah.
My university has had protesters come in and they stay in the university. The uni doesn't take a political side, but has provided facilities because they're strategically placed on the road. So things like that will happen, but yeah, certainly we're not supposed to get involved in Thailand.
Do you think they should? Like, do you think there might be... that things would be better maybe if like Buddhists...
No, I absolutely don't. And I 100% think that monks should stay out of politics.
Interesting.
We're supposed to represent and foster and further the religious ideal of something, the highest point of humanity. Mm-hmm. The attainment of enlightenment is the worthiest aspiration, and we should not be getting involved in local affairs.
Well, yeah, okay, I see that, but playing devil's advocate then, I mean, going back, we've had conversations before where hundreds of years ago, the temples acted as the community schools and the monks were the teachers and the educators, and they should be the ones to sort of lead the community ethically, morally, spiritually, whatever. One could also argue, I guess, that now it's almost time
People didn't have a vote in those days.
Well, now they do. So maybe it's time for monks to step in and say, I'm the best candidate because not only am I a smart cookie, I'm connected. I'm connected to the Sangha. I'm still in the Sangha, and I can apply these noble principles to this set of this political construct that our society operates under now. I think maybe it's time.
There's two things there. One is a monk is definitely not allowed to do those kind of things. Mm-hmm. He would have to disrobe.
Okay.
So 100% we couldn't go into political roles or governance or become judges or policemen or anything like that. You would have to disrobe first. So the question is really a matter of whether one supports it in speech or sermons or in any way. And no, I'm quite happy in Thailand that the monks stay out of it to a large degree. Obviously, again, Westerners love rules, but, they will get involved to some degree one-to-one and they will have opinions. But I'm okay to have the rule there and have a little bit of bleeding around the edges. Somebody gets a little involved here or there. You no need to make hard and fast rules about it. But
I see.
Compared to Sri Lanka, this is really quite nice that monks really do still really follow that idea.
Yeah, I guess it would be a bit trippy to see a bunch of monks standing up at a podium arguing in parliament or something like that. It would be...
Yeah, you couldn't do that.
Yeah, that would be strange. This is sort of a related question, but a bit of an aside. When a monk disrobes, what happens? What is there a severing of the connection between the person and the Sangha? Like, you could disrobe today and then tomorrow run for politics.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between yesterday and today?
You've been disrobed.
But what changes? Is there like a command that is ushered or uttered?
Yeah, you take an ordination procedure, which takes about an hour, and then you're officially a bhiksu or bhikkhu, depending Sanskrit or Pali, and then you're a monk. And then when you disrobe, you have a ceremony which takes only a few minutes, and then the robes are pulled off your shoulder.
Oh, really?
And then you go and put on white clothes. It usually takes 5 precepts, and then you're a layman. And you can do this 7 times in a lifetime.
Only 7?
Yeah, well, that's quite a lot.
I guess so.
You're ordaining 7 times. I mean, you probably want to make your mind up. Unless you've broken one of the cardinal rules. If you've broken a cardinal rule, then you can never reordain in this lifetime, but you can in the next lifetime.
Talk about murder.
So, causing the loss of life of a human being, sexual intercourse with any animal, living or dead, stealing something of a reasonable value, and claiming to have supernatural powers in order to gain followers and offerings. So these are the 4 cardinal rules. Every other rule that monks break, we can confess, absolve, and handle separately. So yeah, you can ordain up to 7 times in a lifetime.
So no interest for you to get into politics one day? You seem to be a pretty good negotiator. You're very well spoken. You understand the concepts.
I'm a big Trump supporter, so...
Oh, God. You and I actually disagree on quite a lot of things. It's fun to talk to you about these kind of things.
Some things he does I'm really happy with, but I'm not... I don't... Political parties that you get entrenched in so that your view and opinion gets fed to you, I think is the bad thing. I go issue by issue, which is what I think people should do. So, for example, I'm always against guns and any kind of guns, and that would cut me out of any American political party, because both of them support guns.
Right.
I'm against the death penalty. I'm against life without parole. I am pro-freedom and pro-free speech. So being a vegetarian, I'm quite happy for other people to eat meat if they want to. Some years ago, they banned fox hunting in Britain, which... I hate fox hunting, and I hate the pageantry and how they dress up and then go out and slaughter an innocent fox. But I don't think the tyranny of the majority making rules for everybody else, I don't think is a good thing. So I'm very much pro-freedom.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be involved in a political party, but I would be involved on a issue-by-issue basis. Which I think everybody should do. You shouldn't get your views and opinions fed to you through a party political machine, which is what I see happening.
Yeah, and then it's also crossing lines into cults of personality too, and you get people built up into these almost godlike figures, Trump
Good
or
or bad.
Yeah. Now, while we're finishing up here, I just want to say that when we're talking about politics here, I mean, we're talking about the structured organization of political parties and how they govern a population. But within the monkhood, within your temple, there's got to be politics too. And I talk about small p politics as like the little cliques that form inside temples.
Oh yeah.
Monks that don't like other monks and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. You have little cliques arise, and then different people have different policies. One of the things is whenever there's money, suddenly everybody has an opinion on how the money should be spent.
Yeah.
So my temple built an enormous Buddha Rupa, and I think the cost was 400 million baht.
This is at Wat Pak Nam Pasicharan, which is the temple of the big golden Buddha that is all over Instagram and stuff like that. That's been under construction for 400 million years.
Well, the paint was no good. So they didn't just finish it, and 2 years later they're repainting it.
Okay.
But currently the paint is held up. It all comes from China, gold paint, and it's held up in customs. So right now people are flocking to see this giant Buddha image, and it's all behind these green netting things.
Yeah.
So some people said that the temple shouldn't... I have a friend, and his father said to him, the temple should not have built this Buddha statue for 400 million baht. They should have fed the poor instead.
I can see it.
But people gave their money to build the statue. It's not like the temple was sitting on a big pile of 400 million baht, trying to decide how to spend it. People donated to build that statue. So I don't think anyone has a right to come and divert the funds into their pet projects. The other thing was, anybody can come and eat for free anyway in the temple, and always could. So we do give food away to feed people who want to be fed, and they don't have to pay. So, yeah, whenever there's money around, suddenly everybody has an opinion on the best way to spend it. And it causes arguments. There was a friend of mine, he used to be a monk in Thailand, and he disrobed over this issue. He was raising quite a lot of money, and he was running a charity sponsoring Thai kids to go through university, mostly poor kids from upcountry. And his abbot found out how much money he was raising and decided to buy I think it's a dialysis machine for the local hospital, something like that. And the abbot says, well, you live in my temple. The money you raise is up to me how it's spent.
Mm.
And the Westerner said, but people gave their money for this project of sponsoring kids. So in the end, he had to disrobe. And he carried on running the same project himself, but as a secular independent.
Wow, interesting.
So, yeah, things like that can occur, but that's normal with human beings, I think. Right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I'm still holding my breath for one day we'll see Senator Joseph, or whatever your real name is, which you have never told me. Once you
Joseph.
Once you
You're guessing Joseph.
I don't know. It could be Zavademton. I don't know. What's a common British name? Charlie. I don't know.
My middle name is Charles.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
You don't think I'm more of I think I'm more of a Merrick.
Merrick?
Yes. I like that name. Or a Damon.
No.
I was supposed to be called Damon, but the church wouldn't allow it. My parents went to have me christened Damon.
Why not?
Because it sounds like Damien Omen or something.
Oh, God. Well, I was supposed to be Rodney.
Rodney?
Yeah. That's a British name. But then my mom liked Gregory Peck, so I became Greg.
Ah.
Yeah.
Because you have big pecs.
I guess so. I guess it's better than being Rod, like the Simpsons episode where they congratulate an inanimate carbon rod. Anyway, thank you for that. Interesting stuff. I think that maybe the common sense that is indicative of a lot of Buddhism might be in much needed in a lot of the politics of today. But I guess we're not going to see it in Thailand, at least not monks running campaigns. Maybe ex-monks, but...
I think but it has an effect. So even the politicians, they always try and pretend or portray themselves as aspiring to greater ideals. Yeah. This is why I actually like kings.
Really?
Partly maybe because I'm British. But the king is the head of the country, not the government. And I like that. I like that whoever we elect as Prime Minister of Britain, they still have to go to the king to pass any law. It always has to be signed in by the monarchy. It just keeps them in the place a little bit. The king's not getting involved, but it just adds that little bit of distance that, yeah, we elected you, but don't get ahead of yourself.
There's a very funny podcast. I'm getting off track here now at the end, but there's a very funny podcast called Jonathan Pie, which you would love. I'll send it to you. But the most recent episode was about the monarchy, and he was going up ranting about how useless the British monarchy is and stuff. And then he gets a caller into a show who basically says the same thing. He's like, yeah, they're a bunch of useless inbred idiots, but they're a unifying figure. It doesn't matter who's in power. They come and go. But the monarchy is always there to sort of provide a rallying point for society to see as a sort of a point of stability.
It's a steady hand on the tiller. And it's a cap on the power of elected politicians who are getting ahead of themselves.
I guess to be discussed in part 2.
There you go.
Phra Pandit, thank you very much for coming by. Always a pleasure to sit down and talk/argue and come away a bit more enlightened every time. So thank you for the free education.
Cool.
See you next time.
Dude, this is a great conversation. I mean, you explained to me that this was somewhat impromptu. Obviously, I would have loved to have been there. I would have had a lot of questions, but that was interesting. My kind of immediate reaction is, I'm not kind of surprised that in general there's supposed to be a separation between kind of spiritual and worldly things. So monks, obviously, in general, they don't participate in normal life activities, and politics is, I guess, part of normal life activities.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those questions that can be answered like, can monks be involved in politics? No. Next article.
Right.
Kind of things.
Right.
But there's actually a lot to talk about.
There's some nuance, right?
But the funny thing that happened after the interview was done, I got to more thinking about it, and there was a couple of times during the interview I was thinking, like, the questions I asked was like, well, maybe politics could benefit from like the wise counsel of someone who has just finished time in a Buddhist monastery or something like that. But then I thought, Jesus, like, would I say the same thing if it was like some preacher coming out of being a priest for 30 years? Like,
That's right.
Nope. So yeah, maybe I sort of was blinded by my own bullshittery there or something. But generally speaking, I would say that mixing religion and politics is not a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously have a lot to say on it since I teach politics and actually teach a class in religion.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, as an American, I'm very much into the separation of church and state. So although I think, as you pointed out, like the kind of the insights of a monk would be very interesting. When I think of like a debate in Parliament and a monk standing up giving his take, that would be kind of a cool take or a cool injection into the normal political debate.
Yeah.
But I understand why having a wall there makes sense.
Oh yeah, totally. I totally do too, and apparently so did the Buddha. So
Right.
It was interesting to get some feedback.
Well, I have
into that.
I have a weird little take on this. When I'm certainly not an expert on Plato or Greek philosophy in general, but I teach some in class. And Plato had this crazy vision for the perfect city or the beautiful city, so to speak. And his idea of philosopher kings, they almost kind of sound like monks. Like his view of the true best leaders are these people who don't need money, don't need jobs, don't care, and also don't care about family. So it's not. It's a little bit like an ascetic, someone who's removed from daily concerns. These are the kind of people who should be making decisions. So when I read it or try to explain it to my students, they almost kind of sound like monks, because
That's interesting.
Because the problem with, I mean, if we think of modern politics without mentioning names, either in Thailand or in the U.S., it's like the problem is when you have political power, there's a tendency to want to benefit, let's say, your own family or your children,
or just financially straight up.
That's right. And so having people who are kind of like monks without those attachments, I understand, why that could be appealing. Having a political leader with no family and no money that was kind of an ascetic, that is kind of an ideal. It's just not the way the world really is.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. And I guess, I mean, then once religion is introduced to us, an equation, then it's like, well, obviously I want everyone to believe the same thing I want to do, and that's where troubles start. If only we could get some monk atheists. I mean, I know that's a direct contradiction.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, that's basically as far as I can tell, this is roughly like a Platonic idea and ideal, actually. Yeah, so I think so anyway, the interview was great. I remember just over the years when I'm reading about Buddhism, it's obviously just mostly spiritual stuff, as you would expect. But then occasionally there's these weird dialogues where the Buddha is talking about like very real world stuff, because he taught for a long period of time, and people basically, there's records of almost like Q&A sessions. And so there's some real world stuff. I remember a dialogue where someone asked him about marriage, how to have a good marriage. And I'm just going to say this because it's in my head, but I should check this first. But I swear to God, there's a dialogue where the Buddha basically tells a guy, you should buy your wife flowers like every once in a while. Like very practical, like kind of common sense. Yeah, dude, if you should buy your wife some gifts like every once in a while.
It was a bit of a tangent, but this afternoon, me and my son drove my wife to a wedding she went to for one of her friends, and my wife said, "Does mommy look pretty?" And my son said, "Yeah." And I took him aside. I'm like, "And what you should do is then you should follow that up with a compliment on something, shoes or earrings or hair or something like that." My wife hit me, of course, but I was like, there's only one answer to that question: is yes, you look beautiful, and also you should add something because that gives you some dimensionality. So that's just kind of funny.
That's great. Very practical. That is very practical advice there.
Hey, you got to learn from somewhere, right? I never had a dad to teach me. I had to learn through many, many years of toil and struggle.
Many, many years of failure, right? And then you've kind of figured out there's only one answer to that question. No, I wish I'm torn on this issue. I'm torn in the way we've talked about. I totally understand kind of I think of it as an American thing since I teach American politics. But, in the U.S., there's this strict wall of separation. Like they're just religious people should not. I'm not saying people who go to church shouldn't be involved in politics, but just religious ideas, religious motivation should not be part of politics. So I get that. But then, man, like a monk that leads a very different life, that sees the world from a different angle, their wisdom in politics, I think, would be a breath of fresh air, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we can always hope for a better, brighter future. Maybe in a couple hundred years, there'll be like a council of leaders or something, and a monk will be
true wise men. Maybe we call it like the Jedi Council, possibly.
Ooh, I like where this is going. Well, many thanks, Phra Pandit, for sitting down and chatting. Always a fun discussion, and we hope to have you back again soon.
No doubt about it. Thank you, Phra Pandit.
All right, let's get into some love, loathe, or live with, where one of us picks a particular aspect of living in Bangkok, which we discuss to decide if it's something we love about living here, loathe about living here, or come to accept as something that we just have to learn to live with, no matter how we feel about it. And this weekend, I got a pretty straightforward one for you.
Okay.
But I want to see what you think. When you're in a park, one of Bangkok's many parks, the big ones, the small ones, whatever, and you want to take a shortcut across the grass, what do you think about when you put your foot on the grass and you hear a whistle and some security guard is like, no. And basically you're not allowed to walk on the grass.
Yeah. I wouldn't say regular offender. It's not like I'm in this situation a lot, but I'm definitely a shortcut kind of guy. Yeah. I am the kind of guy who will just walk over this thing. And I hate walking around. It's funny. It's kind of funny you brought this up, because I feel you could almost generalize this, where I do this kind of stuff all the time. It might even be an MRT station or BTS station where, there's the counter that I want to get to, and they have a maze of what, to get there. They have the barrier set up, so you got to walk down and U-turn.
Right.
And I
it's
just
like trying to get into a hot club or something with velvet ropes.
Yeah, and there's no one in line, and they've got, I've got to walk 5 times the distance. So I definitely
feel like a tool walking, making these little corner turns with no one there.
No, I am the guy that just like pushes the rope down and just steps over it. Because actually, I'm not super tall, but by Thai standards, I'm tall. So a lot of times the barriers are things I can step over. So I am a short, totally just ignoring the barrier, like walk across the grass, like step over this. So again, I wouldn't say I'm a hater. I'm going to go mild loathe.
I'm going to go heavy loathe.
Oh, okay.
When it comes to walking. Now, there are a lot of times when I've tried to ride my bike across the grass or something and they've stopped me, and I kind of get that. Sure, bikes can tear up grasses, but I mean, what else is grass for if not to walk on and enjoy? It seems ridiculous to me.
I think grass by nature is supposed to be tough. It's not like you're walking on a flower bed.
Right. It's like when you go to your grandma's place and she has a new sofa, but you're not allowed to sit in it. It's covered with plastic or something. Like, why buy it then?
You're like,
why
Granny.
Are you so much? Let me sit on your stupid chair. But yeah, I don't get it. If you have this nice, beautiful park and you spend time like making it look nice, I'm not going to start running around in football cleats. I just want to stroll across it, perhaps even sit down and enjoy myself.
Agreed. I'm with you. I think we're close to 100%. It doesn't bother me that much, but I don't know if I'd call myself the king of shortcuts. So I'm definitely, sometimes I see a barrier and I just kind of know I'm not supposed to walk this way, but then I look at, this is going to take me, this is going to take me 45 seconds to walk around. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
That's 45 seconds. I could be listening to music at home.
That's right. I'm going to take this 10-second shortcut. That's me. So I got to say loathe. So I guess we're a double loathe here.
Double loathe. I like it.
All right. A final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
That's right. Listen to each episode on YouTube as well. Send us a voicemail through our website that we'll feature on the show. Hit me up on Blue Sky at BKK Greg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay cool. Hot season is still around, and we'll see you back here next week.
For sure.